Okay, so let's continue our discussion on normal forms. So in the last class, I have defined, in the last lecture, we have seen the definition of the functional dependencies. Let me briefly recall this important definition, because we are going to spend considerable amount of time understanding this notion of functional dependencies. So, it basically says that one set of attributes is actually functionally dependent on x. That means, it is actually a function of x. Right. So, you all know what is a function. So, the value of these attributes would uniquely determine the values of these attributes. Okay. So, that is all we are saying, but we are saying it in elaborate manner here, that if any instance R of R, if two tuples agree on these attributes of x, then they will also agree on the attributes of y, which is a different way of saying that it's a function. Okay. So, having said that, we looked at several examples, and in this class I am going to continue giving a couple of more examples, and then we will start looking at these functional dependencies in a little bit abstract way, and then see what are its implications. Okay. So, in the last class we also talked about what are called trivial and non-trivial functional dependencies. So, you notice that if the right hand side attributes are a subset of the left hand side attributes, then this kind of a functional dependency x determines y will always hold on any scheme. What it says here is that if two tuples agree on x, then they will agree on y, but if y is a subset of x, so they are already agreeing on y. Okay. So, there is nothing. So, we call such kind of dependencies as trivial functional dependencies, as they always hold. Now, if y is not a subset of x, we will call that as a non-trivial functional dependency. And then if x and y are actually completely they are disjoint, then we will call that as a completely non-trivial functional dependencies. So, most of the time we will be worried about non-trivial functional dependencies, and we will see how exactly what are the other various other things we will do with functional dependencies. Okay, before we proceed, here is a bit of a notational convention. We will use this low end alphabets A, B, C, D along with their subscripted versions like A subscript 1, B1, C1 like that, to denote individual attributes. And then the alphabets on the high end, the X, Y, Z, Z, Y, X, W, U, V, etc. Those alphabets we will use for sets of attributes. So, these letters we will use to stand for sets of attributes. That is why in the functional dependency we have always been using x determines y. So, x is a set of attributes, y is a set of attributes. And if we want to talk about some individual attribute, then we will usually put it as A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. We will use letters from the lower end of the alphabets just to make it easier for us to remember. Now, let us look at some more examples. Consider this scheme prerequisite. We already have this in our scheme, the institute scheme. We also have lots of other relations in that scheme. If I will leave it to you as an exercise to look at the functional dependencies in those things. Actually, in most of the other relations, the functional dependency that holds would be key on the left hand side and the remaining attributes on the right hand side. You can verify that. But this one, what about this one? Does prerequisite functionally determine course ID? So, prerequisite, recall that prerequisite course is a course number, course ID is also a course number, and we will have a row if some particular course is a prerequisite of some other course, right. And so, there will be all such tuples in this particular instance. Now, the question is, if two rows agree on prerequisite course, should they also agree on course ID in this relation? So, if they always agree in all instances of prerequisite relation, then we say that prerequisite course determines course ID. So, from the logical understanding of the domain, what do you feel about this? This is not true, right? It's not true. So, a course might be prerequisite for many courses, and so it might appear along with many other courses as tuples here. So, given the value of prerequisite, we will not be able to uniquely determine what is the course ID in general. Okay. What about the other way around? Does course ID determine prerequisite? Does course ID determine prerequisite? It's also not true, because again a course may have many prerequisites actually. So, it is possible that no FDs hold on some schemes. So, do not be looking for schemes looking for functional dependencies in all possible schemes. It is possible that there are cases where no functional dependencies hold at all. Okay, let us proceed. What about here? Student, remember that this is the example. I told you that this is a example of a bad scheme, and then we started all our discussion with this example. So, let us reconsider that example, where we have roll number, name, sex, department name, so and office phone and HOD. So, what are all the assumptions here? The assumptions are that each student belongs to a single department, and each department is headed by a professor, and the department has one office phone. So, these are the assumptions. So, under these assumptions, what is the key for this? What is the key for this scheme? What is the hesitation for telling me the key here? It's simple, right? We just chose to attach some more information with each student. So, that does not affect the the property that roll number is the key for the relation. Roll number continues to be the key for this, because given the roll number, we will be able to uniquely identify one row in this particular data set. Given the roll number, we will be able to identify. So, there would be two rows with same roll number. It is a relation. So, roll number continues to be key. So, roll number, since roll number is a key, so roll number determines all the other attributes. Roll number determines. Notice one more thing here, that we could actually write roll number determines department name as a separate FD, and it will still be valid. Okay, and we, because instead of writing roll number name determines name, roll number determines department ID, etc., we now actually have one FD which says roll number determines all the other attributes. And this kind of a thing, as we have mentioned right in the beginning, that this kind of a thing always happens. If the left hand side is a key, key will always determine all the other attributes. Okay. So, that is a functional dependency that always holds good in any scheme. Of course, if this key itself is all the attributes, then there is no possibility for the right hand side. That is what happened for a prerequisite relation. Good. So, that is the what about any other FDs that are existing here? Any more FDs exist? Now, let's pick up some attributes and then see whether they determine any other attribute. That means, if two rows agree on that attribute, then they have to agree on some other attribute, right? Can you see that something happening like that? In this set, roll number, name, sex, department name, office phone and HOD. Particularly, let us look at this department name. Let us look at department name. Department names are unique. We will not have, in an institute, we will not have two departments of computer science, right? So, computer science and engineering, the title of the name of the department is only one department. So, like that. So, this values for this, if you focus on the values of this, let us say if two rows of this particular table agree on the value of the department name, then what should they agree on? What are the other attributes that they should agree on? What are the other attributes they should agree on? What is one more attribute that they should agree on, at least? A HOD, right? You cannot say that in one tuple, computer science department has PSK, I mean, Chandra as a HOD, and in some other tuple, you cannot say that Krishna Sivalingam is a HOD, right? It will be inconsistent. So, if two rows have Department of Computer Science in as under this column, then under the column HOD, they should have exactly one person over there. They cannot have two different values there. They have to agree on it. And so is the case with office phone. So is the case with office phone. If you mention office phone as one phone here and then some other phone in somewhere else, then we have doubt actually which is the actual phone, right? So, department name indeed functionally determines office phone and HOD. Well, good. Is there anything else? Do you think one more thing or anything more? Let us look at this. There are just half a dozen of these attributes. So, okay, let me give you a hint. What about HOD on the left hand side? What is the policy of the institute regarding HODs? Can some professor be a HOD for two departments? Will any professor will agree for that? One department itself is a big headache. So, I can't be head of the department for two head departments. So, nobody will agree generally for being a HOD for two departments. So, in general, a person is HOD for exactly one department. That is a reasonable assumption to make in this context. So, given that, so if you have HOD on the left hand side, what do you have on the right hand side? If two tuples agree on HOD, then they will agree on department name and obviously phone. So, HOD determines department name and office phone. In some places, they may violate this policy and then make some poor professor as HOD of two departments. So, it kind of depends on the policy of the institute. Luckily, we have a policy that each professor has had only one department. So, again it brings to focus the fact that these functional dependencies are actually knowledge about the domain that you are modeling. They are not. They don't come from some thin air from somewhere. They are knowledge about the domain that you are modeling, and particularly they cannot be inferred by just looking at data. You have to look at the model. You have to look at the domain. Okay. Now, no other FTs hold, and so we can. Does office phone on the office phone determine department name? Yeah, actually that I think is yeah. So given that the exact each department has, so even office phone can be thought of as some kind of a determiner for good. So we can add that office phone now determines department name and also determines HOD. Good. So some other place also. So this again brings to focus. Okay, this is one thing. This kind of determining the functional dependencies that hold on the domain by understanding the domain, figuring out the key properties in the domain, knowledge about the domain. But there are some kind of functional dependencies which can actually be derived sort of mechanically from the given functional dependencies. That is another situation that arises in this context, and we will look at that. Given that some set of functional dependencies F hold on some scheme R, it turns out that we can actually do some logical inferences. I mean, logically we can conclude that some other functional dependencies should always hold. Okay, I will give you an example for this. Say, for instance, given that X determines Y and Y determines Z hold on some relation scheme, we can actually infer that X determines Z must also hold. Why is this? If two rows agree on X and because X determines Y holds, they agree on Y attribute values, and because Y determines Z holds in the given scheme, since they are agreeing on Y attributes, they must also agree on Z attributes. So that means basically if you assume that they agree on X attributes, we will conclude that they agree on Z attributes. This is a simple, we can later of course give a nice name for this. We can actually call this as some kind of a transitivity property of the functional that determines symbol. Well, then there are going to be a lot more of these functional dependencies, which are kind of mechanically can be figured out. Given some set of functional dependencies, we can actually figure out a lot more functional dependencies by this process of deriving them. So then the question that comes up is, how do we systematically obtain all such new functional dependencies? And obviously we as designers are have precious time, so we will not be able to sit down and list down lots of things. We will list the crucial things, and is there some algorithmic process by which we can actually obtain a lot of functional dependencies? That's one question that comes up. Of course, under the we assume that unless all FDs are known, a relation scheme is not fully specified. So okay, in this context, let me define a new kind of a thing. We'll call it the entailment relation. It's a new name I'm bringing in, a new symbol I will bringing in. This symbol actually is called the turnstile symbol. So we say that a set of functional dependencies would entail some other functional dependency x determines y. So, it is read in multiple ways. We say f entails x determines y, or f logically implies x determines y, like that we will read it. Now, the defining condition is that if in every instance R of some scheme relation of some relation scheme R, capital R, on which these functional dependencies f hold. So, if the left hand side functional dependencies hold, then it is always the case that the right hand side functional dependency also holds. Okay. If that is the case, we say that then this right hand side functional dependency is logically implied by the left hand side functional dependency, or left hand side functional dependencies entail the right hand side functional dependency. Okay. Now, we have already seen such an example. So, in the previous slide, we have seen that if x determines y, y determines x hold on some scheme, then if then they will logically imply that x determines z holds. Okay. So, are there more such things? So, there was a researcher by name Armstrong who investigated this issue in the early when the relational theory was getting developed in the 80s, 90s, 19, and then he came up with several inference rules for deriving new functional dependencies from a given set of functional dependencies. Okay. So, we will study them. Okay. Before we go, one more notation. We call this f plus, f superscript plus, as the closure of f, which is the set of all functional dependencies x determines y that are logically implied by the given set of functional dependencies here. Okay. The set of all functional dependencies that are entailed by a given set of functional dependencies, that is f plus. So, given f, we talk about f plus, which is the in some sense a logical closure of f. Okay. Now, so these logical inference, the inference rules that Armstrong came up with, they are called Armstrong's inference rules, and they are also known as Armstrong's axioms. We will look at them now. Okay. The first one is called the reflexive rule, which actually is always holds. So, if f entails x determines y, all x determines y such that y is a subset of x, these are actually trivial functional dependencies. So, what it basically saying here is that whatever is the given set of functional dependencies, we can always derive trivial functional dependencies out of it. So, these trivial functional dependencies are those which have their right hand side as a subset of the left hand side. So, trivial like this. Next one is what is called the augmentation rule. What this says is that suppose you are given a functional dependency x determines y, then that would logically imply that a new functional dependency where you take some bunch of attributes and add them both to the left hand side and to the right hand side. Okay. So, we write them as xz determines yz, where z is some set of functional dependencies, some set of attributes from R. Now, so we use this notational convenience, saying that instead of writing x union z, we simply write it as xz. You can also, in our context of schemas, it kind of makes sense because we are just going to write these additional attributes concatenated with the old attributes. Okay. So, xz determines yz for some z which is a subset of R. So, this will given that on some on all any instance, if x determines y holds, then what we are saying is that xz determines yz also holds. But it's not very difficult to see this actually, because anyway we are adding the same set of attributes on left hand side and right hand side. So, if now additionally let us say to argue that this is correct. So, on two rows if xz attributes agree, then because we know that x determines y holds, they have to agree on y attributes. Okay, they have to agree on y attributes, and since you already know that they agree on z attributes, because they are because on the left hand side z is also there. So, it is automatic that yz they agree on yz attributes. Okay. If you have any questions, please pause me, because I am using a little bit new terms here. By now, I think you are comfortable with this term called the two tuples agree on attributes. That means they have the same corresponding values on the attributes. So, if they agree on xz attributes, they will agree on yz attributes, given that x determines y. So, that is called the augmentation rule. Then the next one is actually the transitive rule, and we have already seen, I have given you this example. So, if x determines y holds, y determines z, together hold on some scheme, then we can actually argue that they logically imply x determines z also holds. Okay. And the appropriate name to give for this is obviously transitive rule. We call it transitive rule. Now, in addition to this, there are some other there are actually three more rules, which are exactly, I will show you in the next slide, that they are not exactly essential, but they are nice to have them, so, let us look at them actually. So, one of them is called the decomposition or projective rule. What this says is that given that x determines yz, see, I want to now distinguish between two sets of attributes. That is why I have written two symbols here, y and z. Y is a set of attributes, z is another set of attributes. X determines yz is given, then it logically implies x determines y holds. Okay. So, what we are basically saying here is that we are only choosing some subset of the right hand side and then claiming that that functional dependency holds, which is actually very obvious, because if given that this happens, that means any two rows, if they agree on x, they will agree on yz is given. They will obviously agree on a subset of yz, because they already are agreeing on the entire yz. So, they will agree on some subset of yz. This y is a subset of yz. Remember this, we will continue to use this notation. The two sets, which write them together, is union. Okay. So, this is called decomposition rule, which basically allows us to kind of drop some attributes on the right hand side and then derive new functional dependencies from the given functional dependency. Now, the reverse of this is what is called the union rule. If you are able to do that, then obviously we can do this. So, if x determines y holds, x determines z holds, then we might as well combine that together and then write that x determines yz. Okay. Given that x determines y and x determines z hold, that means if two tuples agree on x, they are going to agree on y, they are going to agree on z. So, we might as well write that x determines yz, which is in some sense the inverse of the above rule, the projective rule. So, that is why it is called union or additive rule. Now, here is a one more rule called pseudo transitive rule. what this says is that if x determines y and some wy determines z is given, then you can derive wx determines z. Wx determines z. It's not very actually difficult to see this. So, if you start off with wx determines wx, if they agree on wx, then since they agree on x, they will be agree on y, and since w is already there, so if they agree on wy, and it is given that they agree on z, so you can see that if they agree on wx, they will actually agree on z. You can actually formally prove it by using. I will show you. I will take one of these examples and then show how exactly we can so called derive them using. In fact, what we can show is that all these 4, 5, 6 are not really necessary. The fact that this is logically implied by this can in fact be proved by using 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay, we will see that. I will show you for. I think I will show you for this at the tutorial, and I will leave it as an exercise for you to show the other two. Okay, so basically, what is happening here is that there are some functional dependencies that can be in some sense logically derived from the given set of functional dependencies, and now we are finding that this researcher Armstrong has postulated or given certain rules. And what we actually find interesting about this whole thing is that these first 3 rules on AT are in fact necessary and also sufficient to get hold of all the functional dependencies that logically hold on a given set of given a particular set of functional dependencies. In order to get hold of F plus, these RAT, this reflexive rule, augmentation rule, transitive rule are necessary and sufficient. We will actually make that statement elaborate. We will elaborate on that statement. Good. Before we proceed to that, let us take rule 5. Rule 4, 5, 6 actually are not really necessary. We will take rule 5 and then see that we can actually prove that using 1, 2, 3 alone. So, let me take this as a small exercise as to also illustrate to you as to how you, if you are given some entailment relation like this, how do you actually prove it? So, you prove it by writing down these given things on into different lines as given, and then start writing all the inferences what can be. So, now given x determines y, x determines z, we can use the augmentation rule on this one, and then simply augment x on both sides, augment it with x on both sides. So, x union x is x itself and x union y is xy. So, we will get a new thing called x determines x xy. Now, take the other one x determines z and augment it with y, xy determines yz, zy. Now that you have x determines xy, xy determines zy, use the transitive rule and then you will get this x determines zy or yz. It does not matter whether you write it yz or zy because union is commutative. So, what is the rule here saying? X determines y, x determines z logically implies x determines yz, and we will be able to prove that x determines. So, by making use of rule 1, 2, 3, reflexive, rule augmentation rule 2 times and the transitive rule once. Rules 2, 3 we have been able to use and then prove this. So, try this as an exercise for the other two rules also, 4, 6 also you will be able to prove them using just 1, 2, 3 alone. Okay, but it's kind of useful to have these 4, 5, 6 as shortcut rules, because every time you want to use this nice rule called the projective rule or the union rule, you don't have to again use 1, 2, 3 to kind of first derive it. So, well, let's keep them as 4, 5, 6 as useful shortcuts, but theoretically speaking they are not really necessary. Okay, so what is the story so far? The story so far is that normally functional dependencies have to be determined by the designers. Okay, but there are some kind of functional dependencies which can be logically derived from the given set of functional dependencies. In order to understand this, we have defined a notion called logical implication among the sets of functional dependencies, okay, and we call that as entailment. Okay, and in that, after we define this entailment relation, we have now seen that there are 3 rules called the reflexive rule, augmentation rule and transitive rule, using which we can derive other functional dependencies. Now, the interesting question that comes up is that, are these rules arbitrarily chosen? Are they enough? Are they good? First thing is, are they good and are they enough? So, these also can be called as sound and complete inference rules. So, what Armstrong has not shown is that he not only postulated these 3 rules, but he has also shown that these rules are what are called sound and complete, in the sense that supposing I define this f underscore subscript AA for standing for Armstrong's axioms as the set of all functional dependencies x determines y that can actually be derived from f using Armstrong's axioms. Now that we have Armstrong's axioms, we clearly understood them. So, you know also how to derive a new functional dependency given a set of functional dependencies. So, let us call that set of all functional dependencies that can be derived from f using Armstrong's axioms as, let us give it a new name, f underscore AA. Now, for soundness, what we are claiming here is that f AA is in fact subset of f plus. What is f plus? F plus is the closure, that is the set of all functional dependencies that can be logically derived from f. So, whatever the Armstrong's axioms derive are in fact correct ones, that means they are in fact members of f plus. So, every new functional dependency x determines y derived from a given set of functional dependencies f using the Armstrong's axioms is such that f indeed entails that. So, this is, if you show this, this is called soundness or correctness of these rules. The other one is called the completeness. What this says is that given any functional dependency that is, so what actually what this says is f plus is a subset of f underscore AA. That means, given any functional dependency x determines y that is logically implied by f, that means is a member of f plus, okay, it can in fact be derived from f using Armstrong's axioms. This is a surprising fact actually, right. So, if you are able to show these two things, then we have made really very strong statement about this Armstrong's axioms, that these rules are enough. Do not look around for new rules, these rules are enough. Okay. So, that is very nice property of this Armstrong's axioms. So, in the next lecture, I will actually prove that the soundness and completeness of this Armstrong's axioms indeed hold. Okay. Now, there is a nice picture that I have here to illustrate this thing, that this is F and this is F plus. Okay. So, basically derive using double A. So, what we are soundness what claims is that whatever you derive using Armstrong's axioms falls within F plus, it does not go outside, that is the sound. Now, the other one is that taken something from here, you take some functional dependency that is a member of F plus, just it can in fact be derived using F, that is what the completeness claims. F plus is subset of. So, it will be interesting to prove these two facts. We will see them in the next lecture. Okay. I suggest you reflect on these two interesting properties of Armstrong's axioms before you come to the next class. Actually, try out some schemes. In fact, you have all some derived some schemes. So, on them you try to figure out what are the functional dependencies that fall between the attributes and look at them from this angle. Okay. Good.